Okay, so you have your chair here, and the next thing we're going to do is reset the pivot point, as I said. So what you have to do is come up here to the hierarchy, which is the third tab in, and go to the top button, which is affect pivot only. Now you can see that the pivot is out of whack here because we're after taking it off the backboard of the actual chair, which we had tilted and everything, so it's out of alignment. So for starters, we're going to do this button here, which is center the object, and then we're going to go down to the bottom button of this section and press align to world. So that's going to be straight up and centered the object. Now, as a team, we've agreed that the pivot point should actually be on the back left vertice of each model. So to do that, what I'm going to do is press this button here, which is snap toggle, and or you can just press S on your keyboard, and that'll do the same thing. That just means that I can actually snap to the vertice down here, and that's because I have these different snap parameters set up here, just like up here. So I have them set here so you can actually snap to a vertex. So if I press W, it'll give me the move indicator, or the move gizmo I should say, which I can actually move around the pivot point now to where I want. So I'm going to snap it to one of the vertices down here on the bottom of the model. Oops. And I am happy enough with, whoops, I am happy enough with where that is, I think. Yeah, that'll be grand, because that's the back left. So once that's done, we're going to do a couple of things first. So the pivot point is set now, but it's not actually rotated properly, because when you're exporting the model, you're going to have Y is up. Now instead of having to do that, we can actually just rotate it ourselves, so it's so all the axes we know are in the right angle. The right angles that we actually want them to be. But before we do that, what we're going to do is scale the model. In order to scale the model, we'll go to scale, make sure that it's on this top one. If you hold the scale, it'll bring up the three of them. Make sure it's on the top one, otherwise it'll get all warped. And we're going to scale it so that the chair, the actual seat of the chair, is about 1 meter up on the character, so you can actually sit down, which again is pretty accurate to what it should be. So best thing to do for getting reference then is to make a box. Sorry, it's going to be haywire because the snaps are on, so you can turn them off. So drag out a box and make it 2 in height and 0.5 in everything else. So there it is. Now the chair is obviously a bit smaller than this, but we are going to sort that out. That's what we're here for. So if I select the box and I press W to get the move gizmo up, I can go down here to these transform boxes and I can like reset them to 0 manually, or I can just right click on the spinner and that'll reset it back to 0 on each one. I'm going to do the same on the chair, just to reset them all back to 0. Move it out a bit from there, go into my left view and get out my rescale gizmo, grab the center triangle, which means you're going to scale on all axes, and I'm going to scale it up to be about halfway up, which is about there. So if he was to sit down, maybe a little bit smaller, but we'll see once we're actually in Unity what way it should be. Well, no. So that looks about right to me. A little bit smaller. That looks about right, yeah. A person could easily come around that size and just pop into that chair. Looks perfect, grand. So I'm going to delete this box, and what we're going to do from this point, because we scaled it, we are going to have to reset the Xform, which means we're not going to scale it again. Everything is set at that point. So to do that, we go to the Utilities tab on the end. We go to Reset Xform, Reset Selected, and that's going to show up in your Modifier tab as an Xform thing, box. So if you just right click and convert to an editable poly, then everything is set there so that it's not going to be out of whack when you start rotating or doing anything else, because the scale is actually back to 100 as opposed to whatever it was set at. Okay, so from here, we'll go back into the actual pivot point. Again, effect pivot point only. And the last thing we're going to do with the pivot, now that it's in position and the Xform is in reset, we're just going to grab it on this axis and pull. Now we're going to just cancel that because I don't have angle snap turned on. So I'm going to turn that on, and we're going to pull the Z, which is the blue axis, to the front, which is here, so I can see it here. So just pull it down in a 90-degree angle front, which means that the Y is going to be up, which is saving us exporting it that way. At least we manually know that it's that way. X is that way, and then obviously Z is forward. So the reason we do this is because sometimes what can happen is the Z, say, can be this way, and what happens is when you export it to Y is up, the Y goes up this way and the X is still out of whack, so it's not right. So we want to have the X facing forward, sorry, the Z facing forward, the X that facing that way, and the Y facing up. So now we know that the pivot is set correctly, and we know for sure that it's going to be fine in Unity. So we can unselect that now, and that's our model scaled and set. So what we're going to do from here is just reset the actual model back into the 0 point of the world, so we can bake maps off it. Now to bake maps off the model, there's two maps we're going to do, and that's a normal map and an ambient occlusion map. And I find that the best thing for rendering an ambient occlusion map, the best kind of lighting that I can use for it, to get an overall sense of where the darkness clumps and that sort of stuff, is if I go into the modifier panel, if I go to the standard panel and just go to lights, which is the third tab in, and go from photometric to standard and go to skylight. If I place a skylight anywhere in the scene, it doesn't matter where, basically it's going to render in a nice kind of even kind of shadow gradient over the whole scene, and the darkest areas will clump together and that sort of stuff. So it'll give us a good indicator as to what the map is going to be like, and then when we render a map in this light, it'll come out that way. So just make sure when you press the skylight down that you actually press Q afterwards, which means that you don't have skylight selected anymore, just so you don't put in multiple skylights. So to render the maps, then I'll show you what this looks like. Actually, if you just press F4, it'll turn off wireframe, or F4 to turn on wireframe, depending on what way you're currently set up. If you change from shaded to realistic, it will render in, and it'll show you kind of what the map is going to look like. So you have these areas down here a little bit darker and that sort of stuff, and if we look underneath, it's going to be a lot darker under there. So ambient occlusion maps, they don't tend to come out perfect first off, so you generally have to edit them in some way inside Photoshop, just so you know yourself. Again, areas where it will be on the map will look better and that sort of stuff. So to render out the maps, what we're going to do is we're going to press 0 on the keypad. Actually, we're going to press it on the numbers up top, because the 0 on the keypad specifically doesn't work. So if you press 0 on the top row of the keys, it'll bring up a map, render the texture map. If you can't find it there, it should be under rendering and render the texture. Yeah, there it is. Render the texture. So we have this selected, and that brings that up. So you can see that in here, box 2 is what this is called currently. In fact, we'll just change that right now. So it's concert chair. Oh, sorry, my cap lock's wrong. So concert chair is what it is. And now, as you'll see when we bring up the maps, that it's actually concert chair in here, so that when we're saving it out, we don't have to rename it. It'll just actually already be concert chair. We don't have to rename it as much. So down, if we just drag it down here, we're going to press the add button, and add is add what type of maps you want. So I can see here that the normal map is here, but the actual ambient occlusion map is missing. That's because my renderer is a default scanline renderer, and we want the mental ray renderer. So to get that, we have to go to render setup, or I think it's F9 as well. No, that's rendering. F10 is render setup. So either that button or F10 will bring it up. And what you're going to do is drag the first page down to the bottom where you can see the sign renderer. For some reason it's closed, and you just open it up and you have default scanline renderer here. If you press these three dots, it'll give you the options, and you can have the default scanline renderer or mental ray, which is this one. So that's what we're going to use, and we can just exit out of it now. So if we press 0 again, it'll bring back up the render the texture window, and again move down to the bottom, and we're going to go add, and you'll see that ambient occlusion is now here. So we can double click on that, and we can add normal maps as well. So we can do the two of them at once. So you can select them by selecting each map in this little box here, and you're going to have to edit the parameters of both of these. So if we take the ambient occlusion map first thing I would do is click this little three dot button, which is going to be the file name and type, and it's going to just show you where you want to save it. So this is under a cardboard box on my directory, so I don't want it there. I want it in concert chair, and instead of a concert chair ambient occlusion mental ray, I just going to call it concert chair underscore AL, and it's going to save as a target file. I actually just want it as a PNG, and I'll save it out. And the next thing I'm going to change then is the size. We want it the same as our UV map, so that's 1024 by 1024, so we're going to go 1024 by 1024. Samples is kind of how long it takes, how much quality goes into it. For ambient occlusion maps, I tend to have it about 128. Just you can put it whatever way you want yourself, but that's generally what I have it at. Unless it's a particularly high quality model, then I'll have it up higher. Sorry, you need to change that. So that's that set up, and now we're just going to set up the normal map. So the same, we're going to go with the three dots, and we're going to tell it where to save. So that's in concert chair and underscore nor is going to be, sorry, it's going to be the normal map, and then instead of target we're going to save as a PNG, and we're going to press OK. And again it's going to be changed to 1024 by 1024, and that's all we have to do with the normal map. So once we have the two of them set up, what we have to do is hit render down here, and it's that's going to come up. Just don't show this message again, it's fine, because I'm not exactly sure why that comes up. And you just press continue, and it's going to render out the actual ambient occlusion and the normal map now at once.